Inside the ring and octagon. And today we are joined by Jolene Mizzone and Joe Rotonda of Main Events Promotions in New Jersey. Thank you guys both for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
What's up, buddy?
So you guys are both safe and healthy during these difficult times.
Yes, thank God. Joe, I don't know about.
Struggling, man.
Yeah, I can relate, and I hear you, and I'm glad you guys are safe and healthy. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to sharing your story to all the viewers. We're live on YouTube at Team La Perla Boxing and MMA. Thank you for joining us. So we'll start off with Jolene, and we'll go back and forth here. Both have a story to share, as we have Jolene Mizzone, head matchmaker of Main Events Promotions with a vast experience in the boxing world. Jolene, talk to us about where you're from and kind of your background growing up as a child.
Oh, God. Well, believe it or not, I grew up in New Jersey, in West Patterson, New Jersey, and I got suspended a lot for fighting. I had a lot of suspensions. I was not such a good kid. I was a pretty bad kid, but I turned myself around and used my I guess you could say, my badness for boxing. So, you know, it was just matter of time just to be into boxing with what, you know, I dealt with growing up.
Very interesting. So we'll transfer over to Joe, too. We'll kind of go back and forth here with the questions as both of you join us today. We have Joe Rotonda, head of events and operations for Main Events and assistant matchmaker. Joe, as we introduce you to the audience, talk to us about where you're from and your upbringing as a child.
Yeah, so my story's a lot cooler than Jolene's. I grew up in West Milford, New Jersey. It's like the woods. My upbringing was good. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun. I was kind of the same thing. I was aggressive. Like I love fighting. And I grew up a diehard fight fan, which eventually, fucking 20 years down the line, whatever, led me into trying to get into the fight business, which thank God came to fruition.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So as both of you now are in your profession working for a top promoter in the world, Main Events, for those of you that know, is based out of New Jersey. Major shows in Atlantic City on the boardwalk. They have had a number of fighters over the years, Holyfield, Arturo Gatti, and now have Evan Holyfield as well. For you, those of you that don't know, he's early on in his career. I had the pleasure of watching him down here in Florida. Talk to us, Jolene, about how your introduction to boxing came about. Obviously, you said you were a fighter. You were aggressive. You were throwing hands at a young age while growing up in school. Talk to us about your introduction to boxing.
Well, I started when I was 22, 23 years old, and it was literally I just needed a job. And it was a receptionist job of just answering phones and doing like grunt work. And I hated it. I thought it was horrible. It was just too much drama. It was just too much. I didn't like it. And then as time went by, I just grew into it. I didn't know shit about boxing. I'm not going to claim to be a big fan. When I started, I was 22 years old, and the only thing I gave a shit about was going out with my friends and partying and drinking. So it was just a job. You know, I was a boxing fan, you know, more of a Mike Tyson, Holyfield boxing fan, the big guys. So, and then I just grew from the company. I started as a receptionist, went into travel and logistics, then went into, you know, vice president and then head matchmaker. So now it's like the mafia. Now I can't get out of it.
So as you transition through those stages, you literally walk in the door, you're taking phone calls. Did you have an understanding of what you were walking into with Main Events?
No, not at all. You know, I just knew that, you know, at the time they had Pernell Whitaker, you know, big guys like that. And I was just like, these guys don't mean anything to me, you know, and they're just people to me. And as I was there a couple of years, then I started to realize, like, fuck, what did I get myself into? This is a lot of drama. I'd hear, this fighter isn't talking to that one. This one wants to try to get rid of us as a promoter. This one's fighting with his manager. This one doesn't want to stay in training camp with this guy because he smells. I'm like, holy shit, what am I getting myself into? And then as I grew into the sport, I just loved it.
Very interesting. So what were some of your first experiences with fighters? What was we can go back that far?
First experiences was, it was Ike Cortez. I remember him coming to the office and basically, he was married, but basically saying to me that he wanted to take me out on a date. And I was like, who the fuck is this guy? And I remember them busting me saying, oh, you're going to have to go out on a date. He's our fighter. He's a big guy, this and that. And then dealings with Fernando Vargas, Zab Judah, Arturo Gatti. And when I started with them, they were just people to me. I wasn't such a huge fight fan where I could say, oh my God, I'm hanging out with Zab Judah, I'm hanging out with Pernell Whitaker or Andrew Galata, there's so many that they were just people to me.
Interesting that you say that people are more important than things. And as far as your attitude going into it, essentially, you didn't realize the popularity and what was really going on at that time. Obviously, in main events, is still a big deal and was back then, especially with Atlantic City and all the great fights there. As we transition to Joe, and we'll continue with you, Jolene, as you have a vast experience. I look forward to continue sharing your story. Joe, talk to us about you growing up in Jersey, being a fight fan, and kind of how you transitioned into the position you're in now.
So I was a fucking diehard, man. Literally a diehard Mike Tyson fan, Arturo Gatti, De La Hoya, Mosley, that whole late 90s era of fighters was just, it took over my whole life. I loved it. And I ended up somehow in the Navy. And you know what? Let's rewind. Actually, I ended up fighting, honestly. I had one almost like a smoker's fight in Florida right before I went to the Navy. I won. I can't find the VHS. I don't know where it is, so I don't even like to bring it up because I sound like a liar. But I won in like fucking 15 seconds. And I thought I was going to be like world champion.
We need to see that VHS.
I don't even bring it up because it's nowhere to be found. I had an aunt who was married to my uncle. She was a major bitch. And she ended up taping over it in like a Lifetime movie or something. That's a story for another day. So I literally thought I was going to be world champ, all the shit. My head was so big. And then I started sparring. And I was like, fuck this, man. Like, this is a whole nother animal. I was getting my ass kicked. So I wrapped that up quick. I ended up in the Navy, but couldn't let go. I was still such a diehard. I ended up teaching friends on deployment, like how to box. And just like any other fan, I thought I fucking knew everything. I ended up teaching guys how to box on deployment, then whatever, wrapped that up. Fast forward a couple of years, I got out of the Navy and ended up doing like tree work again. Like that's what I did most of my life, was like climbing trees and doing like real labor. And I still couldn't let go. I had nothing going. So I started going to some amateur shows, and they let me start judging. And that was how I was going to get my foot in the door. I started judging amateur shows. And I just did it just to try to meet people, make some connections. And I applied for an internship at Main Events. I had no idea they were like 10 minutes from my apartment at the time. And I got the internship, thank God. I interned under this guy, Matt Delaglio, who's with the New York Commission now. He's a stud. Love Matt. And I probably interned for 2 years. Like I was addicted. I wasn't leaving. Even if they tried to get me to go, I was going to fight to stay. And thankfully, over time, Matt got an opportunity to go to the New York Commission, and that gave me ultimately his full-time role doing logistics, like medicals, fighter travel, hotel, all this shit. And it's been a wrap ever since. And I love it. I love the whole industry. I'm addicted.
It's amazing. A lot of persistency there. Obviously, you heard Joe Rotonda sharing his story where he literally was interning and stuck around long enough where they couldn't get rid of him. That just shares with other viewers today that you gotta stick with it, stick the course.
Joe,
not easy.
Joe, not interrupt you, but Joe, tell everybody what you said about me when you first interned.
It's a long list of shit. She fucking hated me. I know she hated me.
It's not true.
Oh my God! You know what's wild, Eddie?
Yes.
It was your brother. It was your brother. We were at Turning Stone Casino for a fight. Your brother came out to the fight with his wife, Katie. And I saw Jolene walking by with the staff, and I didn't really hang with them that much at the time. I was still an intern, kind of like finding my way. And they came over, and I said, Geraldo, this is Jolene. She doesn't fucking like me, but Jolene is Geraldo. It was Eddie's brother.
Wow.
Yeah.
Life
but
comes.
It's not true. She hated everybody. And I was just like, fuck.
No, you had to earn your stripes.
Yeah, no, I know.
So, Jolene, you've been the head matchmaker for how many years in this position? You obviously had other positions with main events. And how long have you been in this position?
I'd say since 2004 or 5.
So over the last 15 plus years, what would you say is the most rewarding and most challenging part of this position, being a head matchmaker for a large boxing promotion company?
The most rewarding is when you're making a fight and you have to convince a fighter to take the fight when they don't want to take it because you know they're going to win and they win and you end up being right. The worst part is when you make a match, it's done, it's signed, sealed, and delivered, and you have second thoughts about it. Going into the fight, you're scared shit. And you're just crossing your fingers, hoping, I hope he comes through, you know? But when you have the second thoughts, and Joe knows because he's dealt with it, when you make a match and then you have second thoughts after the fact, it's a lot to deal with. You lose a lot of sleep.
Very interesting. So, Joe, what would you, in response to that question as well, the most challenging and most rewarding part of your position? Obviously, you're a double-sided there. You're head of operations and events for main events, and then you're also an assistant matchmaker.
Right. So I actually, all the years I was there before they let me start matching fights, I never thought about matching ever. I was honestly happy with what I was doing. I was just happy to be there. And then Jolene threw the idea, like, you're going to start making fights at blah, blah, blah. And I dug in a little bit and did my homework, and I love it. It's so much fun, but she's right. Like, the first fight I thought I made, I was like, this is fucking easy, man. I was like, this guy's going to fight. He agreed to this much in the purse. So I was like, I'm not, like, this is fucking easy. I was meant to do this shit. And then I think she was like, yeah, okay. Did you get the contract? And I was like, no, but he's going to send it. I trust him. And, I think like 2 days later, the fighter hit me up. He's like, I'm good, man. Got a better offer. I was like, what the fuck? So it was like the best first experience. I was like, all right, like until you get that contract, none of this shit's real.
Right. And how many times have you had to match up own fighters in your own stable? Does that happen? That's something you probably try to stay away from, I would imagine. Does that happen often at all? If at all?
Oh, yeah, it happens often. We try to stay away from it, but we only want to do it when the time's right. At one time, we have Sergey Kovalev, and I offered Sullivan Brer, who we had at the time, the fight, and, they didn't take it because they thought it was a setup. Thought it was a bad mistake on their part, but, life moves on, and they're supposed to fight again once all the rescheduling's done.
Interesting. So it has to be pretty difficult too. You're in-house, so now it's almost, I'm trying to recall a fight. I believe it was Jacobs versus, there was another fighter opposite of him. They both worked out of the same gym. Was it Devchenko when Jacobs fought him?
Devchenko, yeah.
Yeah, and you had Rozier in one corner and then the other coach from the gym in the other corner.
Sure. Yep.
It reminds me of that.
Yeah.
Very difficult situation, and then you start, fighters and coaches are starting to question things and say, wait a minute, we're in-house. So I could see that as a huge challenge.
Because the one side always thinks they're being set up.
Definitely. And Joe, what's your experience with that thus far with main events?
I personally never haven't experienced that. That's Jolene does. Jolene's in there with the really big fights. I'm still really training for like the 4th and 6th rounders, and if I could throw an idea their way for anything bigger, I do. But I haven't had to experience like lining up guys in the same stable. My opinion on it is I guess if it's time to fight, it's time to fight.
Right.
Yeah.
You got side by side in the rankings or whatnot, and that's how it works out. Like, it is what it is.
Right, and it's the business side of things. And we spoke with Nico Montano earlier today, and how she had to fight in the Ultimate Fighter on the show with literally someone that she's sharing a room with, on the show. It's business and not personal. So I know that has to be a difficult thing to do, but it has to be done. So, and we'll go back to Jolene. I'd like to ask you, in your vast experience and background with matchmaking, what have been some of the short-term goals you've accomplished, and what are some goals you still have that you want to accomplish?
I think one of the short-term goals that I accomplished is with a heavyweight of Cassius Chaney, getting him. What is he now, Joe? 18-0, right?
Yeah.
Getting him to 18-0 and matching him from the very beginning when he was really green, and seeing his progress and the hopes of him actually fighting for a championship within, the next year or so, year and a half. That's a big accomplishment, and it takes a lot of hard work to match him with the right people at the right time. What I foresee, what I'm looking forward to, is doing the same thing in a sense with Evan Holyfield. It's a catch-22. People want to fight him because his last name's Holyfield, and they want to beat a Holyfield. And then you have people that want to fight him and want to get paid ridiculous amount of money because his last name's a Holyfield. But that's what I'm more or less looking forward to. Is I like to build the guy from the bottom up, and see the progress.
Very interesting, Joe, and sharing that with Jolene's message there. How would you answer that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun being able to contribute to somebody's young fighter's career. Like, there's a lot of young guys that I've been able to make some of their fights, and watching them come out on top, and it's honestly rewarding. Guys like Ismael Villarreal, I don't know if you know him, he's one of our younger guys. I love matching him. I think he's got great potential, and it's rewarding for me to watch him pass all these tests and hopefully one day, fight for a title.
Yeah, it's truly amazing. That's an experience. You see some of these younger fighters up and coming. They have short-term, long-term goals. You're helping them reach them. That's truly a blessing and an experience that many people don't have. You guys are both literally outside of the ring and inside the ring. You see the product you're putting together with Main Events. And as we talk about Main Events in New Jersey, if you guys could talk to us about some of your community involvement. I know you guys obviously have been with the company for a good period of time. Jolene, if you want to chime in on this as far as Main Events and any community involvement they have in New Jersey overall.
Well, a lot of, the problem with Jersey is a lot of the gyms are shut down, but Main Event still supports the New Jersey Golden Gloves. We're still one of the main sponsors because we believe that with the young amateurs, that's where it all starts at. So, that's kind of we try to support wherever we can. We also support a lot of the gyms in New York as well. Just, with any equipment. I mean, we're always donating used old gloves to all different gyms. You don't realize, how important that is with these young youth that can't afford a pair of gloves. I mean, we've given hundreds of gloves to gyms all over, the tri-state area.
That's amazing. Starting with the youth and working your way up, obviously you guys dealing with youth and making a difference in your community, and you're also doing on the pro side of these fighters that are making millions of dollars. Joe, if you want to chime in and talk to us about your day-to-day experiences at Main Events.
It's Main Events is, dude, it's honestly, it's one of the best places as far as internally. It's so laid back. Kathy Duva is an animal. She's literally one of the best people to work for. Jolene could use help, but it's a great. No, Main Events is the best, man. You go in there, and it's the best for me because I'm addicted to this shit. I love this shit. I bring the work home with me whether I have to or not. I do. I love it, man. It's literally a dream being part of this industry.
That's awesome.
There's some people in the industry that suck, but being a part of it's the best.
And Joe, you led to my next question, and I'll ask you, Jolene, your relationship with Kathy Duva, head of Main Events, runs the show. Talk to us about your learning under her and obviously in the different positions you've grown over the years into the head matchmaker now. Talk to us about the relationship with Kathy Duva, Jolene.
It's amazing. I've learned so much from Kathy. She's been in the business for so many more years than me. And just look, me and Kathy, what's great about Kathy is we will fight back and forth. But one of us will get our point across, whether right or wrong, which you need that. You don't want an employee that's scared of you, that's not going to challenge you. And yet you don't want an employee that's always going to come at you and just keep on giving you shit. So, me and Kathy are like a yin and yang. She's very laid back, soft spoken, and me, I'll curse somebody out in a second. Where she feels I can get away with that, where she doesn't. So the stuff that I've learned from her, whether behind the scenes or in front of the scenes, I can't even explain. It's you can't even explain it. It's amazing.
It's truly awesome. And Joe, your relationship with Kathy Duva in your period of time with Main Events?
Unless I'm wrong, I think it's great. I love Kathy, man. I have nothing but respect for her. Just to show how great Kathy is, like, I've seen fighters, I won't mention their names, I've seen fighters, like, walk through fans when fans are, like, trying to acknowledge them. Can I have a picture? Kathy Duba will fucking acknowledge anyone that wants to be acknowledged. You know what I'm saying? Like, I bring friends that work the events and shit, and just to help out, she doesn't know them, doesn't have a reason to sit down and speak with them, but she will, and I've seen her do it in the past. Kathy's the best. Can't say enough good things. Give me a raise, please.
Truly, truly awesome. And that's great, Joe. Your relationship both of you guys have with your boss and the CEO of Main Events, Kathy Duva, has been a pioneer in the sport and boxing promotions across the world, not only in New Jersey, not only in the United States, but across the world. Leads me to our next question, Jolene, and we'll wrap up here soon. Your favorite fighter, we'll do, this is a 3-part question. Your favorite matchmaking, the thing you put together, your most favorite fight you've put together as a matchmaker, and your favorite location for a fight.
Favorite fighter is Arturo Gatti. Favorite fight that I put together, I'd have to say that it was probably Glasscoff and Joe, help me, what's his name?
A match you made with Glasscoff?
The NBC fight that fell apart. It just went out.
Garrett Wilson?
Garrett Wilson. It was supposed to be Adamak against Glasscoff, heavyweight, on regular NBC. 3 days before the fight, Adamek pulled out of the fight with the flu. I was able, with the help of others, I'm not going to take all the credit, to get Garrett Wilson on 3 days' notice to fight on NBC prime time.
Wow.
Just getting that on 3 days' notice is, forget about that. And then what was the last question?
Your favorite location to watch a fight or a place you've attended to watch a fight?
Favorite location to watch a fight is definitely Madison Square Garden. It's just the Garden.
It's the Garden. Nothing like it.
Yeah.
And is there a place you've attended fights there? Is there somewhere else in the world you've attended a fight that you thought? Go ahead.
The best place I like to, when I'm working, to put on a fight is Mohegan Sun.
Never been. I would like to go there in Connecticut one day. Yeah.
Great.
And Joe, reverting the questions to you now. Favorite fight you've put together in your short period of time as assistant matchmaker, or helped Jolene and chimed in on that. Also, your favorite fight that you've seen, and then your favorite location to watch a fight.
All right, so I haven't made a shitload of fights, but the one that sticks out is it was in California. It was one of our guys. He's an animal too. Matty Araskeyev fought Luis Hernandez. This tough, durable fucking guy that is. I think look at his record. Maybe people think clear B-side walkover. Far from it. Tough as shit, gritty, comes forward. and he had Madiar hurt early in the fight. And when he hurt him, I start fucking walking to the back of the venue. I'm like, holy shit, dude! I made this fight. I'm fucked. I was fucking scared, man. I was gonna throw up. And it was such a good fight though in the ring. And Madiar came through, pulled it out. It was a great fight. That was my favorite fight so far that I've made. It was like it showed Madiar had to dig deep and come back in that fight. He was probably down a little bit because he got rocked early. And favorite venue to watch a fight at is probably resorts in Atlantic City. They have this fucking cool theater style, and it's small. But no matter where you sit, it's like you're in the ring. I don't even know if they still do fights there, but it's resorts in Atlantic City is a badass venue.
Interesting you say that, and Atlantic City has made a comeback in recent years. I remember HBO did a special on it, how they started to get fights back there again and get it going. Essentially, it was the Vegas. Obviously, in Jolene, you witnessed a lot of those huge fights on the boardwalk.
Yeah.
And as it continues to move forward in that direction again, obviously with Evan Holyfield in the stable, I'm sure you'll live some of those moments in the future that you had in the past with those major fights.
I hope so, because Atlantic City during the Arturo Gatti days and the Evander Holyfield days was another world.
Yeah, and it reminds me of the Cotto fights I grew up watching in the Garden, and a lot of people don't understand that experience. There's nothing like it.
I went to every Cotto fight in the Garden.
Well, I'm glad you got to enjoy that because many people, it's hard to relate. I went to my first fight out in Vegas with Golovkin. Canelo won. Great experience. Wasn't the Garden. You felt the big time with the Vegas, but I'd have to say I nothing like the Garden and nothing like a fight with a fan base like ours. And it's truly amazing. And I know Arturo had the same type of fan base, and obviously Holyfield.
Oh, yeah.
So as we wrap up today, I'd like to ask you both, what would you share to those people that have an interest in working in boxing and possibly working for a promoter? It's not for everyone, but what would you like to share with Jolene? You can answer that first. And you've worked a number of different positions for one promotion, and Joe as well. What would you guys like to share with the youth or young adults that are interested in working in the sport of boxing?
The biggest thing I share with every one of our interns, I might not share that with Joe because I didn't like them, but is these boxers are just like us. Do not be in awe with them. Treat them just like you would treat your friend. Don't come into a business and be like, oh my God, there's Floyd Mayweather, and take a picture. Just be cool. You will learn so much more when you take your fanboy or fangirl out of it. They're just like any celebrity. They put their pants on the same way we do. So just go into it as a business, and you'll make great friends of some of the most famous people that you wouldn't even think you would. And you'll enjoy it a lot more than being on pins and needles with these guys. Just be yourself.
It's a great message, especially in a sport like boxing where there's so many characters. Always be yourself. And Joe, what would you say to those young adults? Obviously, you're still a young man and have worked in your time with Main Events as you continue to learn and grow with the company. What would you say to other the youth or young adults pursuing a career in boxing and the promotion side?
If young people are trying to pursue a career in this, they're probably fans. So come in and just listen, because you're going to come in thinking you already know your shit. And I fucking promise you don't. You know what I'm saying? Come in, sponge up all the information out there that people are willing to give you, and just run with it.
Truly, it's so great to have both of you guys on today on the Sunday Sit Down series. I'm Eddie Ramos. And as we wrap up today, we'd like to give you a shout out to your guys' podcast. Jolene and Joe have the Joe and Joe Show. Is that correct?
Yes, J-O and J-O-E.
And give us a little background quickly as we wrap up about the show and what you guys seek out to accomplish with the podcast.
It's just kind of a chill show where we sit down and it's raw and there's no hold back, and it's very casual. We've been talking about for years about doing a podcast because me and Joe, we just have like this chemistry together. where we could just go back and forth with each other. So it's just like a chill show. It's not that serious. We ask tough questions, and we have, a variety of guests on.
And Joe, as you share about your side of the podcast, what would you like to share with those tuning in today on Team La Perla Boxing and MMA YouTube?
No, same, man. It's a lot of fun. It's great. Tune in. Eddie, you got to come on as a guest, man.
You guys had some pretty big names on there. I don't know if I fit the bill, but I'd be more than willing to come on and share my story in the boxing world.
Fuck them. Fuck them. You could come on, man, anytime.
Like, I truly appreciate your time today. Both Jolene and Joe Rotonda of Main Events. Jolene is the head matchmaker at Main Events, and Joe Rotonda, the assistant matchmaker. What would you guys like to share? And we'll start with Jolene as we wrap up with the viewers during this difficult time.
Just keep yourself busy. That's all I can say. Stop sitting at home saying you're fucking bored. You want to go out. Just keep yourself busy. Look in your house, your apartment, wherever you are, there's shit to do. Keep yourself busy. It's better for your mental. Go to a friend's house, sit on the porch 10 feet, 12 feet away from each other, but keep yourself busy.
Thank you, Jolene, and stay busy, everybody. And Joe, what would you like to share with the viewers today?
Yeah, keep your mask on and fucking tune into the Joe and Joe show. That is it.
There you have it.
Great.
There you have it. Jolene Mizzone, head matchmaker, Main Events. Joe Rotonda, assistant matchmaker and head of operations at Main Events. We thank you so much for your time. From Team La Perla Boxing and MMA in San Juan, Puerto Rico, I'm Eddie Ramos with the Sunday Sit Down Series. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thanks, brother.
All right. You guys take care.
You too. Stay safe.
Thank you. You as well.